Hello, everyone. This is Renata here, the marketing coordinator for Autumn HQ, and welcome to our virtual series called Day in the Life. Today, we'll be featuring Rachel Frock, who's a software engineering director at FindHelp. In the meantime, we'll just give it a few minutes to let people fill in the room. So just hold tight for a little bit. In the meantime, if y'all could let us know where you're tuning in from, that would be cool. Alexandra Blanchard, hello. How are you? How's your day going so far? Where are you tuning in from? Okay, Kenneth Evans, tuning in from Austin, Texas. Fahad, what's up, Fahad? Tuning in from Austin as well. Brandy from Houston, nice. Okay, Alexandra from Tennessee, let's go. Have Jay from Austin. Rabita, okay. Nice. Exciting. Thank y'all for coming, being here. Okay, a few more seconds and I'll go ahead and start. So, about Autumn HQ, we are the Austin Urban Technology Movement, and we're a nonprofit organization that bridges the gap between a variety of different communities and the tech industry through job placement, career development, and networking opportunities. In the past year, we were able to award people with 241 different Google certificates to help themselves get upskilled and just better navigate the tech industry market. 127 jobs were secured, and Automite's wages had increased by $40,000 on average. So the work that we're doing is really pivotal in helping people gain more skills, get into the industry, and increase that money. That's very important right now, especially in this economy. So come through, see how we can help y'all out as well. And we do this in a number of ways. Our services include digital equity, so providing people with laptops, access to internet, and also digital literacy training. So classes if people need help, starting with basic computer skills and then working their way up from there. We also have our training cohorts with more than 25 career pathways for entry, mid, and senior level roles across the industry. That's the Google professional certifications. That's part of one of those things that I mentioned earlier, where you can reach out to us and we will pay for your certification, whether it's in data analytics, UX, UI design, digital marketing, program management, project management, et cetera, et cetera. And our last service is job placement. So we do have a job board where people can look at current openings. We also have employer partners that we like to connect with to see what openings they have and see if we can have our Automites be first in line to be interviewed or checked out for those roles. and just any other way we can connect our automites to employers. That's a lot of the work that we do. Okay. And with that said, I will bring to the stage Miss Rachel Frock so she can get us started telling us what a day in her life is like as a software engineering director. Hello, Rachel. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
So I can dive right into it.
Mhm.
Um,
Go ahead.
yeah, thank you. Rachel Frock, I am a software engineering director at FindHelp. I saw many of y'all are in Austin. Our headquarters is also in Austin, and we are national. I've been with FindHelp for about 4 years now. I've been in the Austin tech space for about a decade. I grew up in Round Rock, so not too far from Austin. I claim the Austinite kind of the unicorn kind of claim of being here since birth, but I know it's not technically in the city limits. But I think that it counts. Um, I also went to UT, so I'm a UT alum. And then, kind of a fun fact that I can throw out here too is I did march the tuba in the Longhorn Band. So
I
if you
played the tuba.
did you play the tuba too?
I
Oh,
mean, not at UT, but I did at high school. And then I was like, I feel like if I tried to play tuba in college, I'd probably pass out. Like, I don't know if I could survive.
oh yeah, it was tough. But yeah, we could do a duet, a tuba duet.
Okay, okay. I'm probably gonna sound really bad, but
Hey,
I'm down.
me too. I was not the best tuba player. It's a
Okay.
fun fact, but it's one that I'm like, no one needs to see it,
Yeah.
like actually in
Yes.
person.
Nice. Oh, brass band. What's up? Trombone
Nice.
player. Okay, nice. Fellow band geeks. I love it.
This is actually a band recruitment
Oh,
overview. This is not about tech, just band.
we should have known. We should have
I
known.
know.
All right, nice. So I guess with that said, let's get into what does your day typically look like with meetings, daily tasks, etc.
Yeah. So first glance, anyone, even people on my team who see my calendar, they're like, "You have so many meetings on your calendar." It's usually a solid block. That being said, those meetings, there are things happening in those meetings, and so I'm going to kind of go through the mix of different types of skills that come in between or within each of these meetings. So every week, I do have one-on-ones set up with each of my team members. These one-on-ones include talking about career development, career progression, all of that good stuff. And it could be within the company, but also even outside of it. I like to kind of have a more wholesome or holistic kind of look at where is it that you want to head. Like when I talk with my team members, it's beyond just a single company. We're all kind of here for the greater, like our whole life in terms of career progression. We also talk about tech designs and implementation, lots of like nerding out, which is really fun. Sometimes it's talking about like, I heard that this is something that's going to be implemented in this upcoming feature. And sometimes I'm wanting to understand more some of the technical decisions that my team is making and make sure they're in line with our greater strategy and can call out some things that are happening on other teams to make sure that we're not developing in a silo. And then just in general, the one-on-ones are there to build trust. It's like we spend some of our one-on-ones. I have a employee where she has a bunch of different kinds of cups, and like one-on-one, she was at home that day, and she just was showing me the different like unique cups she has. So she has like a bubble tea cup. She has like a special tea cup. It was just really fun to kind of get to know each other a little bit more there. Um, so one-on-ones is a big part, but then we also have what's called Scrum ceremonies. So if y'all have heard of like Agile Scrum, it's a methodology. You see this across many different tech companies. It's essentially a structure to follow that encourages efficient and quick development. And so for Scrum, what you see is daily stand-ups. That's essentially a check-in to say, what did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? what kind of blockers do you have? And so we go through and each team member will talk about the current ticket that they're working on. And then we also have every week we have, or every other week, we have a backlog refinement that's kind of going through what's in our backlog. We also have what's called a sprint planning. So it's every 2 weeks is the cadence, and then we repeat the meetings all over again. And so, for example, today we just had a sprint planning, which is kicking off another 2 weeks of this process. And then my personal favorite from the Scrum Ceremonies meetings is our retro. So this is a retrospective meeting, and it's a time to look at the previous 2 weeks or the previous sprint, and to then say what didn't go so well in these past 2 weeks, and what's something that we want to change. What are some action items that we may want to put in place in order to prevent maybe a certain bug that happened, or prevent like a process that broke down. And we really kind of get into the nitty gritty of that. We also have shout outs during that meeting. Like, you want to shout out a peer, highlight some good work that they did, as well as just generally what went well. So it's kind of the start, stop, continue approach for our retros. And then I also have partner and customer calls. I've started to join a lot more of those in the past year or two. And those I find very interesting because I get to get direct input from potential partners and customers that we have coming in. And then start to think like, how can our technology and our product actually support the needs of these partners or customers? And what is it that we need to get onto our roadmap in order to be in the right position to support them? So that's really fun because there's the problem solving. I know this is a lot of info, so kind of wrapping it up, just like in a given day or a given week, there really is a mix of like people management, team management, technical solutioning. And there's also cross-department meetings, very similar to what I mentioned for the partner and customer calls. Sometimes it's other departments that may have needs for internal tools that we're building. And those cross-department meetings help to inform that. And then there are also leadership meetings, which I didn't call out kind of in the previous list. These include discussions around improving processes, like overall, like larger processes for the whole department. Often it's talking about hiring, and then in general, department-wide initiatives. This could look like updates to our intern program, which I've run the intern program the past like 3 to 4 years. I have a soft spot for those that are coming from college and like getting into the tech space. It could also be like if we're doing some sort of like reorg, which I know sometimes is like a scary word, but it's more so like, hey, we are moving in this direction. Should we rebrand this team, or should we move around teams so that we're working more effectively? So sometimes that's something that is on the agenda for those leadership meetings. And so all of this, it's kind of just a lot of like vague things about what I do in the day-to-day. And so in the next few slides, I'll share a little bit more about FindHelp specifically, and that should help to shed a little bit more light about the day-to-day.
Nice. Thank you. It sounds like your days are full.
Yeah. Yes, definitely a shortage of time, I would say, for the day-to-day.
Wow. But what I really like that you said is throughout it, there's still a lot of time for connecting with your peers on deeper levels and providing feedback, and like it doesn't seem like you're just at a desk and it's just your task all the time. Like people are still weaved in there, and I really like that.
Yeah, it's a key part. I'll actually talk a little bit about that I know there's a question around collaboration, and I'll share more about specifically what I've seen with FindHelp and the collaboration here.
Nice. Yeah. So if you want to tell us more about FindHelp specifically, that'd be great.
Yeah. So FindHelp, I did mention headquarters is in Austin, Texas. We do have 2 other offices in Denver, Colorado, and Madison, Wisconsin. And this is our slide to kind of share specifically our mission. We are wanting to connect all people in need to the programs that serve them, and with dignity and ease. So it should be easy to connect to the services that people are looking for. And then our vision for the mission is to power the American safety net by simplifying the process of connecting people to help. So this is something that I have found. I worked at Visa was a place that I worked previously, and I was contracted by Dell. I worked at a few other smaller companies before that as a consultant, and coming to a B Corp, so a benefit corporation, has been really eye-opening to me because I had gotten to the grind, and I'll talk about this later as well. So I'll try not to share too much too soon, but it really has been helpful to change the way I'm working and be working on something that I really believe in the mission around. And FindHelp has brought that for me. But yeah, I'll save a little bit more of the insight there for later. But yeah, looking at FindHelp, so I pulled in this slide. I really want to share what is the impact of FindHelp? How big is it right now? So we have over 75 million users currently. And then I specifically lead what we call our programs team, and we build and maintain functionality related to managing program data and the search experience built around navigating for programs on our site. So when we're looking at the number of program locations, so we have over 536,000, the data for those programs are entered through a tool that my team has built. And so we have an internal team that's entering those programs, but we also have recently opened those tools to external customers. And so customers are now also entering program information, and we're starting to scale. And so this number is only going to go up in terms of listing. You can view program locations. This would be like a nonprofit that's listing a certain service or program that they may have happening during that time on our site. And then we also have over 109,000 in-network locations. And so when we talk about claimed, this is the idea of what nonprofits have actually signed up for, like on the FindHelp platform, and are using our technology. So we may have listed a program, but the nonprofit or organization is not actually interacting with the FindHelp platform. That last number there is showing like this is who's actually actively interacting and on the other side of those referrals that are being sent through the FindHelp platform. So if we go to the next slide, this will be a demo that's playing in the background. So it sits for a little bit, but it may start moving. So don't be alarmed by that. So this is a walkthrough that we showed actually at one of our conferences that happened earlier this year in the spring. Yeah, I was like, oh, we are out of spring. I was like, are we still in the spring? But we're already to June. And so we have a yearly, we call it the Connect Summit, and it is open. So if anybody's interested in attending, you're able to sign up, and it's open for anyone to join. So this was a walkthrough to show, essentially this is our search results screen. And then once it starts moving here, it's going to show clicking through onto the program and actually editing the data for that program. And so this is showing what I kind of referred to in the previous slide. We've opened up functionality for editing and creating programs to customers. And so this is showing that functionality, which is something new, and customers are starting to learn how to do that process, where before we have our internal team, which we call the curation team, that would actually own that full process of managing the program data. During this slide, I will talk a little bit about, because this is where I think the like nitty-gritty fun aspects of the role is there are technical challenges that we're really looking to accomplish. And as you look at this, like it's a great kind of end-to-end workflow. But from the developer side, we're like, okay, well, this was built, or the previous screen that was showing was built about 10 to 15 years ago, whenever the company was first founded. And so as engineers, you look at that and it's like, how can we start evolving this and start to improving our screens and modernizing them? And so a lot of the problems that we're solving day to day, and like the technical solutioning that I had mentioned earlier, is around looking at like our front end and saying, what can we do to start to use React components in more places so that we have reusable components and so we can build more efficiently. And we can also change our code more efficiently. So like as we add features, it won't be something where like, okay, well, we have to get in and we have to repeat where this is happening. With the legacy code, there's a lot more to kind of work through. The other thing, and it's on the data side, which I think is really exciting, is we currently have our data, we use GCP, and we have MySQL databases. And so we have data that's split across these two areas. So we have we have SQL data, and we have what's called data store, which is in GCP data. And we're wanting to really break ties with data store. Having your data split across multiple places within your infrastructure can be really challenging as you're then writing code. And so what we're working on doing is eliminating the data store, basically our ties to data store, any dependencies there, and then getting everything into that SQL database. And so as we walk through here, there's several areas where we're like, okay, what is it we can do to no longer use what's called G-Search, which is built on top of data store, or start to remove, and this is getting a little detailed here, but there's also like certain hooks that run after a program update, which means it's calling into data store related functionality. And we're like, okay, well, we need to eliminate that too if we want to get away from data store. So these are some of the technical challenges, and it's really, I personally think it's very exciting to kind of look at those and then say, how do these fit in to the features we're building that are on our roadmap for the customers that we are serving. So yeah, it's a lot of moving parts, but it's really fun to try to align those in a way that you're meeting these technical goals, and that you're meeting these customer goals and meeting the company goals. You just have to kind of align all of that, and on top of that too is like meeting the goals of your team members and making sure they're getting the opportunities to grow. And there's plenty of opportunities to grow when you're trying to grow an application so quickly as well. So yeah, that was a lot. So if y'all have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, but got me excited about the technical challenges.
Wow, this is a lot to manage for sure. Do you find yourself, and this is a personal question I have because I don't
Yeah.
know anything about code, so don't judge my life,
No,
but
it's all good.
um, in like keeping track of all the data and people's goals, and do you find yourself sometimes having to get into the nitty-gritty and be like, hey, I'm just gonna have to code this myself, or I'm just gonna have to, these goals have to be met no matter what, I just have to do it myself?
That's a great question. Honestly, I feel like I don't tend to kind of get to that like nitty-gritty aspect of it. I'm like, I will coach you to find the like my team members to find kind of the solution themselves. There are some I will provide guidelines like for technical solutions, but we have tech designs where I ask that my team is going to go in and actually figure out the details. I have heard from many leaders, though, sometimes it's hard moving from a what's called like an individual contributor role or like an engineering role then into a leadership role because it's requiring to take the hands off the keyboard and like let the like your team actually be the one doing the work versus you doing it yourself. I honestly haven't had as much, and I not to be like, oh, I haven't, had any problems with that. But I less so have found that that's a challenge for me. I will say what's difficult is you don't know all the details. And so a big thing that I try to lean on, and I have to lean on, is my team to help to like teach me what it is that we're doing and teach me different parts of the code that I'm not familiar with. And so it requires a lot of trust of your team members, for sure.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. I was just like, oh my gosh, if anything ever like happens, do you have to go all the way back to square one of like, you know, coding? And but it's cool to know that you have your team to rely on.
Yeah.
And sometimes you really have to challenge yourself to actually lean on them.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, it's an important part of it. And I think it's a balance of like, I try to also, like, I need to learn and understand what it is we're doing technically, because I am then in meetings where I need to advocate for what my team is doing. And I'm in meetings with my team where maybe there are some places where I want to challenge them for the decisions that the technical decisions that are being made. So it is a balance of, um, like, I really view it as like a collaboration with my team of like, let me know what y'all are finding and explain why the decisions are being made the way they are. And then I also am like, you teach me everything that y'all are doing so I can then take that to make sure leadership is bought into.
Okay, that makes sense. So then, how did you, with all of this said, how did you even get started in tech? Um, and how did that get you all the way to this point?
Yeah, great question. So, I grew up enjoying math. I was not big on the more like reading and like liberal arts side, but I did enjoy math, and I was like, okay, I know I like that. And I would say before college, I was like, I like math and I like band. So, kind of bringing it back to our the band call out at the beginning. And so I actually went into college as a music education major. And I was like, I'm going to be a band director. This is going to be my job. My dad was a band director. And so I kind of had that as an example. And then his whole family, they're like music educators. But I found after a year and a half, and I had done some counseling and I had taught. So my primary instrument, I didn't think I would share so much about my music background, but I'll share some more. My primary instrument is bassoon, and then I march tuba. So there's both of those. But I taught like at a bassoon camp, which I loved teaching. I thought that it was a really energizing kind of space, like or like role to be in. And I think the thing that I found though is like I'm like I love the kind of teaching aspect, but I don't really love sorry to music and to band, but I didn't love like that as a topic that I wanted to stay focused in. And then I also didn't feel I wanted to be in a school for like my whole career. Like I was like, I think I want to go create some space between me and school. Um, and so with that, I'd already taken some non-major computer science classes when I was in college. Um, Honestly, I didn't do that well in them, so happy to share that with y'all too. So there's hope if you feel like, oh wait, it's not quite. But I didn't do that well in them. But I was starting to look, and I was like, well, what are my options for getting into something else that's not music? And at the time, the computer science school at UT was an open college. So this is kind of before the boom where everybody's like, everybody do tech or everybody's start coding. Like, I feel very fortunate, and it was a kind of just timing thing where I was able to move over to computer science um, without much blocking. I just had to prove that I would graduate in time. And so I moved over to computer science and I did graduate with a lighter weight degree. And so I want to share that kind of like that aspect too is um, when graduating, I did not take as many computer science courses as others who had a full-fledged like computer science degree. And so when I was leaving college, I didn't feel confident in like my technical skills, or even like possibility of getting a full-time computer science role. And so I did go into, I started at a consultant job. And so essentially, so the place was called Sagetti. Capgemini is the umbrella for that. But there are many different kind of consultant companies. And as part of that, you are contracted out. And this I didn't know when first signing up for consulting is part of the requirement of the job is that you have interviews with clients that you then will decide if you get placed. And I was like, oh man, I like just got through the interview process to be hired here. I like don't want to go through interviewing again. But once you get kind of past that, you do have support in those interviews, which I think is helpful. And for me, being like going into consulting was really helpful to challenge myself to learn a lot and about many different things. And it also allowed me to be, I had like three different, technically like three different roles or contracted roles while working at a single company. So I stayed just working at Sagetti, but then worked at three different places contracted out from them over the span of like 4 or so years. So I found it really helpful to start to like actually become what I felt was like actually I'm actually a developer now because I've like now gotten into that role and had the support to get there. Um, and then from there I was like, okay, I think I need to go and switch into a full-time role. I've like kind of done the gambit of like, learning quickly, being put into these different roles, having to learn a bunch of different languages. And so then I went to Visa, like the card company Visa, and I was there for I can't remember how many months until we hit March 2020. And so then COVID hit, and there was a lot of reflection. When I was at Visa, it was a place where I wasn't there long enough where I felt fully um, like part of the company. And then also, I didn't feel connected to what I was doing um, at basically at that company. And so during COVID, I was kind of like, I think I'm going to leave tech and go into a not like a nonprofit role. And I started looking around, and that's how I found FindHelp, which is not a nonprofit, but it is a benefit corporation, which I know I mentioned earlier. And that was the perfect kind of overlap for me. That got me pretty excited. And so I did interview. I didn't feel like I did very well in the interview, to be honest. But somehow I then I talked with like who would be a potential manager, and then I was hired as a engineer. And so from there, I worked my way up while being here then at FindHelp into management, and then into now the director role. And I have some advice kind of at the end, but kind of calling out one thing that I think really helped me to move into leadership and then up into a director role is I love to find different gaps or areas where it's like, okay, what would fill this, or what is it that what's an idea to make it where we're working better together, or what is yeah, a lot of it is process, or even like the intern program, for example. The first intern program I led, I wasn't managing yet, but I was like, I would like to lead that, and I would like to be the one that's like in charge of that program. And so I really, and even beyond, like starting like with the consulting company, there was no women in tech group there, and I co-founded a women in tech group at Sagetti. It was Sagetti Austin. It's a very large, so not the whole entire national group, but like even out of school where I didn't feel confident in like my technical skills, I was like, this is something that I feel is missing that I think would help. And so just kind of finding initiatives where I'm like, I want to lead that, or kind of bringing up different ideas around like this would improve our process or improve how we work together. I tried to grab onto each of those opportunities and to be pretty vocal in those situations, which I do think helped for me to be considered for like a management role, because I was already essentially doing some amount of management before even being in the role. That was a lot of information, and I dove more into the details than I don't know if y'all wanted to know all of that, but open
No,
to questions.
I think that was a lot of great information, especially what sticks out to me the most is hearing that you came from a musical background, a musical family, musical interest, and you took a few classes, computer science classes, and then like a whole new path just like spurred from there. So I think that's all the details were so necessary to hear each step you took, but I think the overview of like you don't even have to really have an interest in this. You don't have to be like I've wanted to be a
Yeah,
computer science person since I was born. Like it
right.
just doesn't have to be it to find yourself here.
Yeah, and I think it's also this may be less so the case now, but I know it feels very mythical, like, oh, coding and like what's happening, and it's like, and I really confidently feel like anybody can do it, and don't let it be intimidating. And like there are a lot more courses that are online, and even like YouTube Ed is a thing, of like go through, and like there are a lot of resources that are out there. It may feel very intimidating at first, but it's like I really believe that um, anyone can learn coding. And I'm happy to chat about that more too, offline, if people are interested.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely have to let people know like where they can find you at the end of this so that people can connect more. Thank you for sharing all of that. We'll zoom through the next few slides just so we have time for a few questions before we have to let you go because you are a busy working woman. So
Thank you.
um, so really quick, like what's your favorite tools and tech stack?
Yeah. So I use many different tech stacks, excuse me, throughout my career. So started with C#.net, which I found was very interesting. Actually, I did enjoy C# when I was working in it. And then I worked in Java using like the Spring framework. And now at FindHelp, we use Python with React front end. And we use GCP. When I was a consultant, I explored some of Azure, which I thought was really interesting too. And I think in general, I was kind of reflecting on this question too, and I know it's a common one. I really think I enjoy the cloud platforms the most. I'm sure I'm going to get some backlash for this, but I do think that, so for example, at FindHelp we use GCP, and I feel like there's so much functionality within the cloud platforms to explore and to learn about, but it's also approachable. So, like, if I'm wanting to check on an escalation that's happening, I can get into the logs and just kind of figure out what's going on. And I really know like my way around now that I've learned the Google Cloud platform. I think it's really interesting and really powerful too. And I think it's unlocked a lot in general for programming. Um, Now that, I mean, using cloud platforms are kind of ubiquitous now, and so it's less so like, oh, whoa, you're using cloud, like it's kind of the expectation. But I remember before we had kind of the cloud platforms, and I think it's a pretty exciting um, tool that's now really common.
Nice. Awesome. Okay, so with leading in collaboration, what does collaboration look like? I know you talked a bit about this already, so even just like a quick like recap of like what does that look like and how you lead and support your team.
Yeah, we are highly collaborative. I don't know that I've been at a company as collaborative as I've seen here at FindHelp. We do tons of whiteboarding, pair programming, cross team pairing. In our retro earlier this week with my team, I was like, every time I like turned away and looked back, it was like different like permutations of the team were like all collaborating with each other, and I was like, that is awesome to see. And essentially, like none of them were like sitting and waiting, like I don't have support or help in what I'm doing. Like my team members are very quick to reach out and get support. And they reach out across teams and support even across teams within our R&D organization. So yeah, I love to see that. Um, and then I have in my notes that I don't know that this is answering necessarily what you called out, but I can share what I have
Mhm.
in my notes. Yeah, basically calling out one of the reasons I really love managing is there's really an opportunity um, to learn about everyone's strengths and weaknesses and to problem solve to identify opportunities to plug them in. And so when thinking about like collaboration and working with the team, there are so many opportunities to say, this is the team member I want to kind of put forth to go and collaborate or to lead this initiative. And as a manager, that's part of the problem solving piece that I think is really fun and interesting.
Nice. I really like that it appears that there's a number of ways to collaborate and to support your team. It's not just like a one size fits all, and that y'all are trying like a few different ways to make sure y'all are on the same page and like moving forward together. So that's really dope to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, we're not, I was gonna say we're not quiet, which is great.
So then, in being a leader, what's some of the biggest, like one or two of the biggest lessons you've learned?
Yeah, especially getting into like people management. And you see this with like technical, any sort of technical management or technical problem solving. But there are so many different lessons that require a lot of adaptability. So, like, people management can be unpredictable. It can come with supporting people in really real situations. So, like, if a house is damaged from a storm or if they're caring for a family member, um, I don't consider these necessarily like challenges, but they are factors that play into the needs of the role. And there's some that I didn't really consider those when thinking about management, and it's something that has brought um, I would say something really beautiful to the role is like we're all kind of supporting each other as people. And I know when you're at work, it's kind of like employee, manager, and sometimes it's easy to fall into this is just my role and I'm at work. And I just think that um, it's allowed me the opportunity to see even beyond that or even like tap into that more. And I would say I used to be a lot, I think I'm pretty guarded in many cases, which I'm working on. But this has helped me with that specifically to kind of break out of that a little bit more. Um, and it's also managing is not just about like managing your direct team. And this is a challenge that I really needed to work on. And I feel like this year I'm starting to tap into it. Um, so it's not just about managing your direct team and those that are on your team, but it's about managing expectations of your peers and stakeholders and your own managers. So this is kind of referred to often as managing up, but I think it's managing out really. And it's like you may be like heads down and like my team's doing great and we're like accomplishing everything that we need to accomplish. But then if your manager has no idea what it is that your team's doing, or stakeholders are like, "What's on the roadmap? I don't know what's happening, and are you going to build what we're requesting?" Then your job isn't fully getting accomplished yet. It's like you have to also do that piece of like managing up and outwards.
Okay. And those lessons, I'm not gonna lie, are not what I expected to hear. I thought you would have been like, the biggest challenge is when my code keeps breaking, or I don't know. Because once again, I don't know anything about software
No,
engineering,
you're good. That
but
is a challenge too when
yeah,
when the code breaks.
but it is interesting to also hear adaptability and managing up and out
Mhm.
as also being a big challenge, because some people stepping into management or director roles don't ever really think of like the people skills
Right.
um, that are like just as important as your line of code.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and they're challenging because 'cause they're more, I always think of this in terms of setting goals, like, around people management, is they're like, what do I call it? I call them, like, smushy goals, kinda like, they're like it's not very tangible when you
Mm,
think of measuring them even, so it's like, am I getting better at communicating? I don't know, it's like it's harder to track. So it has been interesting to kinda get into it and challenge myself to improve, but also try to figure out how to measure that.
mhm. I definitely get that. So, for someone that does want to step into a leadership role, what's a piece of advice you would give them?
Yeah, I talked about this a little bit on my in when I talked about my journey. So identify initiatives that you want to start or to drive in your current role. So I shared about co-founding the Women in Tech group. If there's ever a mentorship opportunity, I'm like, choose me. I want to mentor, and that's kind of like a good practice of like, how do I work with mentoring someone or coaching somebody? if there's like an intern program or not an intern program at your current job, that's also an area that is pretty approachable, assuming you can get buy-in from those at your work. I just continuously raise my hand for opportunities, and then make sure when you're doing that, or even maybe raising a hand to be part of a conversation around maybe it's a problem that's trying to be solved. This could be in the technical area as well. So maybe there's a big technical problem that you're trying to solve. Make sure that when you're raising your hand, you're bringing solutions for those areas and saying, this is how I recommend we fill them. And then, yeah, kind of, this seems obvious, but I think it's good to call out, but voice that you're interested in being a manager or a leader to your manager. It's important to also like be vocal. If you're kind of like, oh, I hope that someone chooses me for a manager role, but you've never said that to anybody, then it's hard to know, like, okay, this is how I support getting you there. And then connect with other managers in the field and hear their path to leadership. I shared mine today, but it's going to look very different from somebody else. And there are many different paths to becoming a leader. And so seek out that mentorship, both as a mentor, but also as a mentee.
That is great. Great advice, especially the part about like you need to actually say something because
Yeah. It's
many
like we can't
people,
read anyone's mind. Yeah.
yes, especially because, for those people that are going above and beyond, sometimes it can get misconstrued as like, wow, they're just such a great team player. And the whole
Right.
time they're like, I'm trying to get promoted.
Yeah, and it's like, say that. That's, like, so good to know. Yeah, and especially from managing people, "Tell me what it is you want and what your goals are, because like, if I don't know, I just can't support in the way that you want."
Yes. So we'll get into one or two questions just to, be respectful of your time. And we did get a few questions from our audience earlier. So let's see. We have one from Keisha that says, how would someone from a non-traditional background fit with your team?
Yeah, so I actually have and I'm assuming non-traditional, you're saying without, like, a CS degree,
Yeah.
would be the
uh,
assumption? Yeah, I actually have, let me count how many on my team, at least 2 people on my team out of 5 that do not have CS degrees. One moved over into the engineering or R&D department from another role. So if that's a path, some companies offer kind of uh, I'm blanking on kind of the term for this, but the movement of transitioning to a technical role, if that's something you're interested in. So that's a good question to ask when interviewing places or maybe at your own company. I also have, so yeah, calling that out, that exists in many places. We have several people that don't have a traditional background. We have people that have also done boot camps and then come in. I also have several good friends that I mentioned YouTube ed or like learning from what's on YouTube. I have friends that have done that and gone through, they actually compared, she looked at the courses that were at UT and then found online videos that were the same. She's incredible. So I would I'm happy to connect her to people too. She lets me, gives me the go ahead because she's a great inspiration too of like, people can learn this and then go in. And she actually just became a manager as well after being an individual contributor. So I see this more and more. All to say, yeah, I see this more and more that there are non-traditional background developers, both here and at many other companies.
Okay. Awesome. One question we have from Rabita is, what was the legacy code written in from which you're trying to move to using more React components?
Yeah, great question. So I know I mentioned that we use Python. So the legacy code for those front end pages we were looking at are written in Jinja. It's something I actually had not heard about until coming here and now then working in. It's essentially like a markup language. So it looks like a weird version of HTML. And you can still parse through it, and we still make code changes in those areas, but it's just a bit more difficult. We're not as efficient working in those areas than working in our React apps, and so that's something that we're working on um, for not just the pages that were shown, but for across the board, working on improving it.
Okay. She said, "That's really interesting to know. Thank you."
Yeah.
Okay, and then our last question we'll ask from Digital Mercenary says, "How does one as a hardcore coder make the switch into a role like yours after being in code, infrastructure, and cyber, but now want to be less in personal contribution, but more on the solutions and customer side?"
Yeah, there are several different options for when I think of like solutions and customer side. So we have a few different departments, and I'm kind of speaking from the perspective of FindHelp, but you can find this at many different companies. We have a production support team that's more so looking at like debugging issues that customers may raise. And then we also have what's called a technical solutions engineering team, and what I've seen is those technical solutions engineering teams um, have a bit higher technical skill set than what I've seen from production support teams. So they just have slightly different functions. And so I would explore these may be called something slightly different at different teams, but what it allows for is a little bit more customer interaction, and but it's paired with this like technical piece too. So if you're wanting to not move entirely away from like the technical, it may be a bit away from the technical solutioning, but it does have those that like technical debugging, and specifically like our TSE team really focuses on configuration for a lot of our integrations. So if that's something that kind of sounds interesting to you, I would start exploring there.
Okay. And let's see. I guess really quick, thank you so much for everything. I'll start by saying that.
Yeah,
And oh, Digital Mercenary said thanks.
no problem.
um, and for people that have additional questions, where can they find you? How can they stay connected to you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is a great place to find me. I'm also happy to share my email if people are open to that. Would in the chat be best for that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. I will post my email. I'll be honest, on LinkedIn, I don't check that as much, and I get lost in all the messages there. So email is going to be a bit better to get a hold of me. But yeah, y'all are always welcome to reach out. I'm really happy to kind of meet for coffee if y'all are wanting, or if you want to just have a call. I'm really open to connect with anyone who's interested.
Awesome. If y'all could give a virtual round of applause for Rachel Frock today, for sharing with us, for all of her advice, all of the knowledge, sharing her own non-traditional background, getting into tech. We're so grateful for you being here with us. I learned a lot. I'm sure everyone else did too. So thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right. Okay. So, if anyone tuning in ever wants to share your own story of your traditional or non-traditional background in tech, go ahead and scan this QR code to one day come on and share like what you've been going through. Also, our upcoming events. So next week, we're going to have another virtual event called Horizons, where our guest, Alexandria Brown, will be sharing with us how she's been navigating her tech pathway. I think right now she works at Cisco, and she's young, probably in her early 20s, also doing her thing. So scan the QR code on your screen so you can RSVP for that free virtual event that we'll be having lunchtime next week as well. We also want your feedback. What did you think of this event? Also, what do you want to see more from AutomHQ in general? We want to know how we can better help you along your tech journey and what other events that you want to see from us. So scan the code, give us your feedback. Also, the work we do, we are a nonprofit, and the work we do comes from our partners, comes from individuals supporting our mission and our vision. So, your contribution helps us advance digital equity, foster diversity in the tech industry, and create pathways to economic opportunity for our communities. At the beginning, I shared that the work we do helps our Onamites increase their salaries on average of 40,000 plus a year, a 40,000 increase, not a 40,000 salary, a $40,000 increase per year. And we want to help more people to be able to increase their salaries and change their lives economically as well. But we do need funding to do this work. So please scan the QR code to donate and help us move forward. And last but not least, on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, follow us at Autumn HQ, AUTMHQ. Also, check out our website at www.autumnhq.org. The work we do never stops. So, join the movement, stay tuned in, follow us, get involved, volunteer, be a panelist, be a guest. Whichever way you want to get involved with us, get involved with us. We're here for you. We're here for our communities, and we're here for anyone interested in tech. Tech is not off limits to anyone, and we want to make sure people know that. So thank y'all so much. We appreciate y'all, and have a great day. Bye.